that's a different thing. That's a
Steps are
different.
completely separate.
That's a
Sales
separate
tax.
thing.
Totally
That's a
separate.
totally different thing.
You're talking sales tax.
No, I'm talking this original steps that we used to have. One year, we get
Before
30, yeah.
Before the tax passed, to make sure that the
Bro.
tax were all regular.
This many of them, how are you?
How are you?
Good.
Good.
Tax is kept in a separate bank account, a separate accounting system, a separate fund, so that all the money that comes in is never segregated, never commingled with anything else. Excuse me. So we can track the activity of that from the collection of the tax all the way to the payment of the expenses for the tax. So basically, the revenue collected from the sales tax office last year was $26,834,225. And after that, you have your following your expenditures per the teacher raises, which was the original raise amount that cost a little over $7.5 million. Instructional counseling, we didn't spend anything on that. Professional development, this year we only spent $269. The lower class size, $2.9 million. Tutoring and extra instruction, right at $900,000. Then we paid out the excess reserve distribution that we had voted on last year. The final total on that was $4,070,354. And then Burton has to charge an audit fee to audit everything and make sure it's all meets AICPA standards. That was $64.50. So the total expenditures was $25,479,041, which left us an excess revenue over expenditures of $1,363,284. Our beginning operational fund balance, which was the rollover of what we ended up with last year, was $15,971,611. You add that back to the excess revenue and over expenditures of the $1.3 million, and you come out with a total ending fund balance after this year, as of 6/30, of $17,334,895. And that has been audited by Burton's firm. So, in the second item, basically it's the same information, just kind of popped down, and we'll go after that. So from that $17,334,000, we have the reserve of $6 million, which is an initial reserve we set up to cover the amount of the teacher raises. If the tax were to fall off, we would have a cushion. In fiscal year 10, we gave a $1,000 raise funded by the tax in their salary schedule, and we put a year's worth of that payment aside. That's $3 million in reserve in case we'd have a fall off in sales tax. We'd have a year of cushion to pay that without having to do anything to the salary schedule. We could have a year to allow the sales tax to recover. We did the same thing in 2015. We did an additional $1,000 salary increase to the salary schedule. So we put another $3 million aside in that. So you ended up with a residual. Once you subtract the two threes and the sixes from the 17 of $5,334,895. So basically, if you take that by the estimated employee count of teachers that are eligible to get the tax of 2,200 teachers, you have and then you take out the salary and benefit calculations, because we do have to pay retirement on that. It's a retirement eligible payment. So if you add the benefits of the retirement and Medicare, you come out with 1.2745, and then you back into that with a gross payment estimated this year of $1,902.67. And from the history down here, we have kept track of each payment that was made, and keep in mind that in fiscal year 10 and 15, we had this $1,000 that was paid in salary and not paid in bonus. So we have another $2,000 from the tax that was already paid to teachers in their normal salary. And then you see every year the payments we made, and this ranks, I believe, second highest, other than 2013, which is when we paid $2281.54. So under this calculation, if we were to pay the full excess, the teachers would get a gross, and of course that's gross before taxes and whatever else deductions they may have, of $1,902.67. So we were requested, I think it was requested of Billy that we look at some different scenarios of possibilities of giving part of that distribution as a permanent raise to put in the salary schedule, and he was asked to look at those numbers. So basically, the amount of the salary increase, and this is on this, the amount of the salary increase, if we were to give teachers a $750 permanent salary increase, it would lower that distribution to $64. If we were to give teachers an annual permanent salary increase of $500, it would lower that distribution this year to $598. If you give you an annual salary increase of $250, it would lower the distribution payment to $1133. And I know the math looks kind of strange on that because he wanted me to explain that as we did with fiscal year 10 and fiscal year 15, we'd have to put another $3 million aside as a cushion because once that salary becomes permanent, you can't take it away. So we'd have to have at least a year of cushion for that additional $1,000. So that, in essence, double reduces the amount that we would have for distribution to the teachers as an excess. If that makes sense.
So since 2002, we've only had 2 years that we put it into salary.
We've had 2 years where we made a permanent salary increase,
Yes.
and that gets funded every year.
Yes.
So if you would have put that, if that $2,000 wouldn't have been done, we would have been issuing $3,900 as a supplement today.
And I understand that, but part of the whole intent of this was to keep Lafayette Parish in the top 5 or 6 in the state in salary to attract and retain teachers. And if we've been putting it in more often than the 2 times, our teachers would be substantially higher.
You can only put it in one time, you have to fund it every year.
I understand that.
Right, so you would only have $1,900 available. If you put everything in as of today, you would only have $1,900 to be able to fund that salary. Because every year that $2,000 is paid, so that's towards their total salary. The $1,900 for retirement purposes is included in their salary accumulation when they retire. It's part of their salary, just paid as a one-time payment instead of a permanent salary.
I know, but that through the years, their salary is not, I mean, it gets a bonus, but the next year, that's not in there. That's,
I agree, I think that's what the tax was for, even though originally it showed that there were going to be small step increases, it was regular steps that were to progressively continue along every year with the employee, so that as they went for 30 years, that their salary continues to increase. Now, granted, it may not be $1,000 paycheck that year, but it was a continuous step increase that every year, I believe that's what the taxpayers are.
But that was only until you ran out of money. Because as you keep adding this to your salary schedule, you've got to add that equivalent amount to the reserve, which takes away every year. If you would have funded this as part of their salary schedule, you would have run out of money a long time ago. There wouldn't have been any money for any excess distribution.
And just for clarity, the steps have nothing to do with the steps have nothing to do with the steps.
no.
The excess distribution, wasn't that if there was enough money
Yes.
for an excess distribution?
Yeah, that's what we're discussing
Right.
with the October check.
I
Well,
know,
we're considering
but-
October check.
It
You know,
wasn't guaranteed.
Based on the numbers I'm seeing, I can only recommend that you do the one-time distribution in October of the $1,900. I would like for us to evaluate at a future date the $12 million that we currently have in reserve for this fund, with $17 million spent on taxes, on teacher raises. We're having about 60% reserve set up in that reserve fund of $12 million. I would like for us to consider the possibility that that reserve fund is actually a substantial reserve fund, and we'd have to have a very significant downturn in the economy year after year after year for us to actually start getting into that reserve fund. If our sales tops drop $5 million in 1 year, and in Lafayette Parish that has never happened, I don't even think in '82 that happened. We're talking about 2 major drops back to back for us to actually knock out or even come close to knocking out that reserve fund. I would like for us in the future to look at possibly doing a salary increase without having to increase the reserve funding that goes with that. But at the present point in time, the only recommendation I can make is the $1,900 distribution.
What is the policy on how much has to be put in reserve for?
A year, a year's worth. So basically, it's a $3 million, $1,000 is about the $3 million cost of that raise. Isn't it?
Yes.
We have an amount we have to maintain. And I think it's 6, is that right?
6 for the original raise.
Yes.
And then 3 for every additional raise after that. For every $1,000 raise. Just happens to be they're both a $1,000 raise, so that's why it's $3 million. If it would be a $500 raise, it would be $1.5 million. It's a
Somehow or other, we got the cart before the horse in this.
There's only so much you can put into the sales tax. I'm fully aware and understand that concept. But like I said, we could have a 10% reduction in sales tax for 5 years straight and still just be coming to the end or the exhausting of that reserve fund at $12 million. So like I said, I still would like for us to approach and investigate the possibility in the future of incorporating this into the salary schedule, because that's what we can advertise to potential teachers across the state or across the nation in, without having to raise the reserve fund an additional $3 million.
we'll put that in the.
This was also our original intent of this bill was, and what we told people in this community is that this money would go into permanent teacher salary to keep us in the, what are we now, 28, 29? Something like that.
Okay.
We're in high 30s, somewhere around there.
High 30s?
High 30s. I believe last time maybe 34 somewhere is where we're low.
So that would put us in the bottom half.
Does staff have a recommendation on?
The recommendation on the board item was to distribute the 1902.67, but that was basically because we had to put, for our attorney, we have to say something definite. So that's what was posted in a superintendent. That's the recommendation.
I certainly understand is that somebody who just had 2 flat tires and a freezer go out, and an air conditioner go out. I understand right before Christmas how attractive that is. But
It is incredibly popular.
I know,
Yeah.
but it's also short-sighted.
If I remember the numbers right, it's been a while back, but if we had started putting it into the salary schedule, it was going to plateau in 5 years. 5 years after we started collecting the tax, it was going to plateau. So everything would be distributed other than the reserves to cover that within 5 years of that tax going into effect. So it would have plateaued around 07, 08. And there would have been no excess distributions unless you had an excess of collections over what you budgeted. So a lot of this stuff from 09 on down, they wouldn't have gotten that as a separate check. It would have been,
But their salary would have been higher.
Yeah.
salary may be higher. Doesn't mean that we're going to be in the top 30 though.
Plus, there's another variable we have to consider. We seem to forget that if you take a look at the historical payments over the last few years, it tends to fluctuate. And the gentleman talked about an economic downturn at one point in time, but you also have to consider board activity, board action. Because if they decide to fund more teachers through the tax, then that's going to increase expenditures, therefore lowering your potential payout. So that's something also to consider.
But in our bill, it's very clear what teachers get this. This has been debated on this floor ad nauseum.
Every year.
Yeah,
It was that the teachers would get the proceeds from tax.
yeah.
I don't recall it specifically saying that every year they're going to get an increase in their salary. They're going to get it would be distributed to the teachers. That's what was the intent of it. The method in which it was done, that was set up back in a lot of discussion from 02 on. Do we do it as a salary and it caps out in 5 years, or do we do it on an annual basis and just add it as an extra check, the 13th check? At that time, it leaned toward the 13th check.
But and I understand what you're saying, and I just feel like we were way off base when we went to the public with this. And I think the integrity of us going to the public and saying ABC is going to happen, and then we don't do that, how do we go back to them ever and
Well,
expect to get?
You're saying that because we don't add it to their salaries, they get it, that they get it as a 13th check instead of their salaries, that we're not following what we told the public, that the teachers were going to be getting the funds. I think I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair. They're getting it as a 13th check.
But you also said that it was supposed to be an incentive to attract more teachers to the parish. Do you think that a fluctuating one-time payment amount is more attractive than a permanent salary increase? Like, as a teacher, something in salary, I would find that more attractive than a amount that I may or may not get.
Even though we're capped out 10, 12 years ago.
Right,
Yeah.
but this is,
For what we have now, with the teachers that we're getting now, they'd much rather know that they're gonna get a bonus check than an
But you
extra
don't-
$750 or $500.
you don't know from year to year that you're gonna get a bonus check.
No, but it's how you market it and how you prove with it. And we put it out there, our highest check paid out has been $22.81.
So you're marketing
From
that we
ours.
might get an extra paycheck? Not
It's,
to think
well,
it's
we have
attractive
to
to
use
us
what
teachers?
we can to be able to get teachers to want to come here. So we put it out there that, we give us that, we do have extra on top of the salary that we offer. We do give out a sales tax
Okay.
check, and the highest that we've given out is 22, and this is like the range that we've had in the last 3 to 5 years.
And when did y'all
Whenever
start?
we've seen it.
When did y'all start? You polled every
We
teacher
don't
in the
publish it.
parish?
That's what we,
So how
that's just something that we
accurate
use
is
whenever we're talking to
It's
teachers.
very.
Because when I honestly, when I started teaching, this is my 8th year in the parish, I got, it was the 2012 check was the first year I got it. When the $1,800 showed up, I had no clue what it was for. So and that was 8 years ago, so things may have changed, but, you think people really know about it? Like,
Oh,
yeah.
They know about it.
They'll call.
Oh, yeah.
teachers who are thinking about coming, because he said that this was about attracting teachers too. So I know about it, I'm here, but we don't have enough of me. We need more of me. So I'm just not sure how a non-guaranteed one-time payment is going to attract more of me.
It's not, well, you don't put it out there that we're gonna give you a non-guaranteed payment. We just tell them this is what because most other parishes put out there, or whenever they're recruiting, at their tables, they'll have signs and they'll say, this is what our sales tax bonus has been. Because most teachers know that there are sales tax bonuses from parish to parish. I know Acadia gives 3 throughout the year.
St. Martin Parish.
St. Martin Parish gives, I think, 1 or 2 during the year, something like that. So they put out whenever we're talking to people, we will, if it's something to try and help people, or if they talk about the salary, we do all of that and we try to convince them with whatever we have. Because our salary isn't that high, so we use whatever we have, whether it's insurance, the bonus checks, if it's the school that they're going to, the curriculum that we're using, whatever we can to try and get teachers here.
Honestly, most teachers, if they had a choice between a $1,500 bonus check or $1,000 in the salary, is going to take the $1,500 bonus check. And the reason we have to do that is because of putting into that reserve fund, that excess. If it would be one choice or the other, it's still going to be a tough choice for teachers. A lot of them, unfortunately, live paycheck to paycheck, and that bonus check all at once is very attractive to them. But
The feedback I get from the teachers that we talk to overwhelmingly, and also that have called the board members, because the board members, even though when this committee has recommended raises have switched out on the board, they get an overwhelming amount of calls because the teacher feels they feel this. They get a $1,900 check and their paycheck that month. That makes a difference in their life. If you divide it by 12 and take taxes out, they don't feel. That's the feedback I get from teachers, and they can pay for that tire and that refrigerator, or they wait for their
But we
receipt.
haven't done a very good job
Or
of
their vacation
educating
money.
our teachers about this either.
Well, and every year, even though it's not in their salary, it still goes towards their retirement. They pay retirement on it. It goes towards everything else as if it was in the salary. It's just not guaranteed. That's the only thing different that they have, is that in the salary, it would be guaranteed.
But if it
And
were
by-
in there every year, look how much your salary.
Not
would-
necessarily, because like you said, it would have plateaued, this would have stopped. They wouldn't have gotten any more increases after 5 years. You wouldn't have gotten any more increases. You would have been stuck at the same thing with no kind of revenue to even give out a reserve. At least with this way, it may not be a safeguard, it may not be something that you can guarantee every year that this is gonna be the amount, but it's something that you can give that's gonna add to that salary that they're getting. And it's a lot more than just $1,000 that they're gonna see maybe when at the end of their check, they might see $25, $30 difference in their check if you put $1,000 in their salary. And that's just with the teachers that we hire today and how they do it, that's how they're looking at it.
I understand that, and I just think when they get to be 999 like I am,
No,
they will have understand the benefit of having put it into the salary.
I know.
I don't think as many are entering the profession think they're going to be in it for long.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Unfortunately, that's true.
Yeah. That's what I hear.
That's a big.
I think the press on this will look nice. It's 500 more than last year. It's second highest ever.
I know one other board member, he came through real clear. They budget for what their salary is, and this is their excess money they can do other things with over and beyond.
Christmas
They
is
buy
a big
cars,
thing.
yeah, Christmas,
Yeah.
down payment on cars, fixing, I mean, this is makes a difference. It
And
makes
I
a difference.
understand that. I still have a hard time with the, there were a lot of us that went out into this community selling this tax. You were one of them.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
I just don't, and we have to go back to the public all the time.
But they get in the money.
You know,
They
one of
receive the proceeds or the benefits of it. That was the thing. And they're getting what was promised is, what we're arguing about is the form that they get it. They get it as an extra check every year, or they get it as part of their salary.
One of the
hidden
behind the game
things
is
that
already
we're not-
writing a check for $4,000. They would feel that. I mean, because basically they got $4,000, except they got $2,000 in a raise and $2,000 in a bonus. They got
Yeah,
$4,000.
but we've also been sitting 10 years without a salary increase from the state. Haven't been knocked over by one from the district either.
one of the hidden things, benefits that, you know, we may not be thinking about, and there is, you know, there's two sides to every story here, is that when they get that $1,900 check, they're going out and spending it. That's helping the economy, that's helping employ people. When they get a $100 raise in their paycheck every month, they don't necessarily go out and buy a new washing machine or a new refrigerator, you know? So it is an incentive for them to actually go out and spend the money, which does help our economy, and it, once again, comes back towards us.
Because right now we're half and half basically. With 2,000 in salary and 2,000 in, well, I'm rounding up, you're about 2 and 2, you're about half and half.
And
Plus
they get the proceeds.
Yeah, plus the 1,700.
I think it's a good balance. So,
And,
We got a 2,000 increase, the
1,000,
district gave.
no, a 1,010 and a 1,013. So the tax is paying 4,000 in raise right now.
I'm sorry,
With the
I'm
17,000.
sorry, I thought you meant this year that.
No, they got 1,000 that's separate. 1,000 from the state and
And
a
about-
step increase.
For something from,
For
the
something from the district and 1,000 from the state. And then they've got, within that, they've got 2,000 funded by the tax in their salary already. And then they're gonna get 2,000 in a bonus check. It's kind of 50-50 now, which, you know, and they'll forget about that $1,000 raise and because they've already forgotten about the other two. If you think, well, you already got 2,000, well, I already had that. It's gonna, so they don't think about it. The $1,000, the 2,000 they see as extra money, the 1,000 they see as passé. So the next time you give a 1,900, next year you give 800, and then you're the bad guy. Believe me, we get those phone calls.
I know, it's not very complimentary.
It's like you took my money away. You gave me 1,900 last year, but you got a $1,000 raise. Well, I already spent that. I mean, that's literally what they'll tell me.
I
And that's my problem.
Thinking through the unintended consequences of a large check in October, I remember either last year or the year before it came up that there are some teachers who will retire after getting the 14th check, and that creates unexpected turnover during the school year. I would say that that's a bad consequence of this system and maybe a rationale for why it should be built into the salary schedule where you have consistency over the course of the entire school year rather than,
And you also
lump
had a
sum.
teacher that taught the whole year before and retired in the summer, so gets nothing for the stuff that was generated, but somebody that comes in for 2 months, I think we did some adjustment on that, if I remember it.
They wouldn't have gotten it anyway, because we wouldn't have given that raise to the next year. It doesn't make any, the number's the same, it's just how it's distributed during the year. That teacher that retired wouldn't have got that money, because we wouldn't have given the raise to the next year anyway.
I get that, but they worked that whole year that that money was being generated, and they don't get it. And then the person that comes just for the 2 months before we give out a check in October or whatever, gets, I just think there's some, and we've talked about this before, that there's something about the way it falls, it's getting quite cricket.
We did on that regard, we did talk a few years back about moving that check to the last day of school to keep teachers in the classroom.
Yeah.
And that was resoundingly unpopular. Made total sense to me, because we do get the interest check on the last day of school, which is actually nicer now because interest has gone up substantially, so that check is bigger than it has been in the past. When we first started, it was $20 or something
Yeah,
really,
like 25.
really bad. And how much was it this year?
136. 136.
136, which, is nice when you're leaving the last day of school. Something to help you on your summer vacation a little bit. We had talked about putting that check together at the end so that the last day of school, they walk out with the $1,900. But that was not a popular suggestion.
I have another question. Do we give teachers whose students have the high scores on end of course tests a bonus of any kind? Because some, I know St. Martin Parish does, some of the parishes around us.
This year, we're not doing pay for performance stipend. We don't have
We
that
have
this year.
started some discussions at looking at other districts and how they do that.
Is that an option for these funds in the future? Maybe not this year, but,
It is.
okay.
Some places are doing it, we've not done it here.
It's a nice surprise.
Do they fund it through their excess sales tax, those paper performances?
I'm not sure how they do it. We've just started conversation over the summer. We actually have some of our legal folks looking into how that's done.
And I know there are also some districts that give you a little bonus, I guess you call it that, for attendance.
Payments, bonuses or anything.
Well, what do you want? For
Gambling,
attendance, if you
gaming,
don't miss days or something like that.
So some of that, in a few that we've looked into, and we've just done surface level conversation, that is part of some of their incentive stipends, is that you miss fewer than 3 days in the first semester. There's all sorts of ways that they do it.
We did that at one time in this district, but it was probably in the 1990s or something, attendance time.
So we did start this year, Caleb, where we, for the hard to fill, the critical shortage, math, science, ELA, where we were offering more money, and there's an attendance stipend in that as well, in those critical, hard to fill core subjects.
Yeah, that's true. So that being said, we need a recommendation. I believe Lisa has, so we'd like a vote from each representative. If there's more than one representative from one organization, and we can decide how you're going to vote. So, so the recommendation, can I have a recommendation on that?
I'd like to recommend that we recommend the excess distribution in October of $1,902.67.
Second. So, Lisa, do you have the list of the people?
I have, if they just want to show their hands for
Okay.
yay,
Yeah, all those in favor?
and just if you'd hold it up, please.
Okay?
All those opposed? And so you're representing which organization?
LPAE.
LPAE and Apple. And
Apple, so there's only one vote there.
there's only one vote here. And
I'm board appointed. Board appointed.
Board appointed.
Ms. Stephens, board appointed as well.
Just want to make sure we're not double counting votes.
Now, Philip and Ms. Reed are both with LPAE, correct?
Right.
Without the alternatives, if we try and go to our teachers and say, we got you a $750 raise and you get a $64 check, that's gonna be ugly. It's gonna look ugly in the parish, it's gonna look ugly in the public, it's gonna look ugly everywhere.
I don't understand that, but the people who have been attending the meetings, at the AR meetings and the executive board meetings, have expressed a preference for getting
I mean, I have a preference too. I worked really hard to get the original 2,000 put into the extra in the salary for
I
many
understand.
years.
But as president, I am responsible to my membership.
I'm part of the membership.
I understand that's not my only member,
So you want to go
but the one.
with the one payment?
Okay, so where are we?
Well, my question on procedure is, Mr. Ryland is a member of LPAE and he made the motion. So Ms. Reed,
So LPAE is being represented by,
Ms. Reed is the president of LPAE. So I'm not
so
entirely
I would
certain.
believe her vote would be the one now. You're representing LPAE.
Right.
Ms. Reed?
I believe so. This is my first time coming to this.
Versus 2005.
I understand, but I hadn't graduated high school and
I understand.
at that point, so.
Understand.
So let me just. This is the results right now. She changed it.
Last year.
This actually goes to the board for a final decision, doesn't it?
I mean, I would like to see, I think that that's a good middle ground, to be honest. Like,
Got that.
see what I'm saying?
I've never been rescinded.
So Mr. Grove, can't vote here.
Yeah.
So without his, no.
Somehow I got moved into that LPAE.
But each organization has one vote.
So it appears we have a tie because we have an even number of people here. It's 3-3.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Doesn't the board have the final decision?
Yes, ma'am.
The recommendation goes to the board and the board makes the decision.
Correct. This is just a recommendation. The recommendation is a split recommendation. Well, it's not, it's a tie vote on a motion. So, I know, so what do you think?
So, I mean, and I certainly don't get a vote. I'll speak just from the feedback that we get here. And I agree with Mr. Ryland that, I mean, our teachers, over the ones that I hear from, and I don't hear from Julia's membership at all, are counting on that one lump sum. A majority of them are. They wait on it, it helps with Christmas and all of those things. And I can't imagine them not being very vocal about the $750. I understand about the salary and when we retire and all of those things. And $64, or even the middle split as well.
It's kind of like letting a
It's that
child eat
1900.
all the sugar they want, and we should have known better than to give it to them.
I agree.
Well, what about these options back here? Is that the, like, are these put on here? Like, are these real options? Like, these different amounts? Like,
That was put on by the request of Mr. Ryland.
okay. Is there, I mean,
Then we maybe look at the middle one, maybe?
is there some middle ground here?
The 598.
In my personal opinion, and having dealt with, last year I made a recommendation to go for salary increase and a reduced check, and it was resoundingly overwhelmingly by teachers saying, no, we do not want that, including LPAE members. And I tried educating them, trying to explain to them, we need to get this in a salary, take a little bit less up front, and that little bit less up front will not cut it with them. That is personal experience, and this is what I've seen year after year after year.
I just think that just cutting it again is doing a disservice to teachers.
I agree 100% with you, but $500 in their salary for a year is less than $50 a month. And by the time you take out taxes and they come up with, I have $35 to $40 extra in my paycheck a month, they will never notice that.
But it's $500 the next year and the next year.
And it's on paper. In actuality, in their wallet, they don't notice that. And that's the big difference. The $1,900 in their wallet, they will notice. $40 a month, they will not notice. And $500 realistically on that salary scale and our ranking in the state, that's not going to make any difference whatsoever. If we can start talking about adding $1,000, $1,200 onto our salary schedule, so that's $100 a month, every month that's in your paycheck. When we start getting at that level in the salary increase, then I think it's a very viable option. But when we start talking under that $1,200 mark, it's a tough sell, and it just doesn't look as good.
The stipend under 1,200?
I'm talking about like the $1,200 salary increase.
Okay.
That's not even on paper.
But the 500 with the almost 1,500 they're getting, that's $2,000 they're getting into their salary.
Where are you getting the other money?
Because the state gave.
Oh, the state has nothing to do with this.
Well, I'm not following.
The teachers aren't going to look at it as the state gave us $1,000, so it's $1,500 raise. They're not going to look at that. When you start talking about what the state's doing, that has no bearing on this.
It's already done.
Well, yeah, but it's still not going to affect the teachers. The teacher's going to say, you had a chance to get us a $1,900 check, and instead you settled for a $500 check and $40 a month. And they're going to are you kidding me? Christmas is coming up.
As a compromise on the compromise, with the $250, just so as a policy matter, we're starting to put more towards salary, which is, I think, a good policy going forward. And then there's still, and I think, I'm not Mr. Guidry, so I don't know all the numbers that went into this, but it seems like the excess would be higher than 1133, because there's $520 missing. Because 1133 plus 250 gets you 1383.
That's the $3 million that's funded in the reserve that I made a request to see, is there a way in the future, like next year, that we could try and see about getting that salary increase without having to fund an additional $3 million reserve. That's where that extra money's going.
Well, it would be whatever it would be to maintain the 250.
750.
750.
In the reserve, put in the reserve. That's why it comes out of the distribution. That's why it's not, that's why the numbers don't add up. I explained that before.
At least that's
But it's $520 per teacher that's disappearing somehow. I don't understand how it's that much per teacher that's disappearing. Because 1133 plus 250 is 1383, which leaves about $520 per teacher unaccounted for. I can't imagine that it would take $520 per teacher.
And Andre, and I don't understand it, I know Mr. Guidry sat in the board conference room and explained it
Okay.
and showed exactly how and why, and it was exactly how and why when he did whatever he did.
I think it's the bigger the annual salary increase, the more has to be put aside to maintain it over time.
You're not just putting aside for
But
the
I agree with your idea of
salary,
starting
you're
to
putting
put
aside
some
for
of it
benefits
in
as well.
there, even
I just
though.
think
So
we
it's
have a
not,
duty
it's not
to
gonna
our
be just what it
teachers.
takes to cover the difference, the 250, it's the 250 plus what we're gonna pay in benefits.
Billy, Matt, right now, we're not covering 100%, right, of all the distribution that's going into salary. And the distribution in the past that's going into the salary, 10 and 15. We have reserves covering that 100%, am I correct?
That's what I'm understanding.
Yes. Okay, so we got dollar for dollar in the reserves. All right, let me suggest this then. All right, we did a distribution or a salary addition in 10. We did one in 15, so that's 5 years apart. My suggestion would be that we do the $1,900 distribution for this year and for 20. What if, I would like staff to explore viability of maintaining an 80% coverage on the salary portion of it rather than 100%. And next year we could look at making a salary contribution coming out of that reserve plus maybe some of the excess reserves. That would give us a little bit more money to work with. We could add to the salary, but we could also still have a meaningful 13th check. Kind of splitting the baby, but I think at 8%, I would feel comfortable with 80%, and you know how I am with reserves. But I want,
But you're looking at the
between now and
5-year
yeah,
increments.
yeah, between now and next year, even if we have an interim meeting here, just after you run your analysis to see what it would be.
So, is that gonna be explained on the board floor? So that discussion is out there to start off with now?
Well, it certainly can be. So,
I guess the only concern I would have with that is, and I know the state money doesn't, we're not talking about that, but the teachers are seeing a big chunk this year. Next year, if we wait, even though what we're trying to do is give them that 5-year raise, they're not gonna get anything from the state. And so I'm thinking it may not look as much and it wouldn't look so bad this year because they're getting a big chunk from the state. That's the only reason why I would.
But I'll give you the flip side of that, is that they said, okay, because the state's giving us extra money, you're not giving us as much extra money. So you're taking back extra money. They're not gonna see it rolling into their salary. You can tell them it's going in their salary all day long. They know it today, and if you get it tomorrow.
Which is what they expect, or has always been
Yeah.
believed when the state
Yeah,
gets
it's
something.
just like when they
districts
reduce
take
payroll
that.
taxes, okay? Everybody got a little more in their check because they reduced payroll taxes. Anybody ever think that they got an increase in pay? Take home pay? No. No, it just evaporates. It's there, but it just, nobody sees it. It just, it's come through loud and clear for me over the years. That's why I've always supported. I mean, I don't mind boosting the salary, but when we discussed that it was going to cap out, and I think the number was 5 years, we do that, or we could do the distribution every year based on the excess. I mean, I'd rather the extra money then. I'm not sure I'm going to even be teaching 5 years from now. I'd rather get my money now rather than wait to get the benefit from it 15, 20 years as I'm teaching.
And if they're able to put this together, you'd be looking at, I would imagine, somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,000 salary increase next year and around $1,000 check next year.
Kind of what my mental math is.
And after that, you would have maybe $1,000 check if sales revenues stayed at that level. Maybe you get $1,000 bonus check,
So
in
you're talking
the
big
future.
figures there, that if it ended up being
So it'd be
something.
80% of the 2 years, the 10 and the 15.
The reserve for this salary schedule.
So you're suggesting next year that we both evaluate how much to put in to salary from the excess collection and from the reserve?
That we maintain an 80%, instead of 100% salary reserve, we maintain an 80% salary reserve, which means that there's more money left to distribute. So
In the salary schedule?
if we put money into the salary schedule next year, well then that needs to go into the reserve, but instead of doing it at 100%, you do it at 80%, including 80% for the 15 and the 2010 and 2015 reserves. That's going to give you more money to work with as well. So I'm thinking that we could give a contribution to their salary for next year, just like we did in 15. Plus, we'd have a meaningful 13th check. When we did that in 10, they got $300. When we did it in 15, it was doing looking pretty good. They got it at $1,400. I would like to see it somewhere, between 1,000 and 1,500. Just quick mental math, I'm thinking we may be able to pull it off. We may even want to take a policy stand or recommend to the board that they evaluate it every 5th year for an increase in their salary thing. So this is just kind of an automatic type of thing. We give the excess distribution checks, a 13th check, and for 5 years, on that 5th year, we look at taking part of that and putting it into their salary. And we got a 13th check for the next four years, and then that next 5th year will be 2030. Look at putting some of that to salary, and then some of it, what's left in their 13th check. You set up a time frame like that, they kind of know that. But when it's arbitrary, I tell you, if they got $1,400 last year, and you come in and you tell them in 2 or 3 months here that they're going to get $64 or $598, $11.33, they're not going to be happy. I hope they don't have my number.
But I do agree, if you reevaluate the reserve policy.
That 5-year plan, that there's a definite plan in it.
Yeah, okay, if there's a plan, I can agree with that.
I think that's part of the issue. We have this discussion every year. So I just think if we do this, and when we go to the board this time with the recommendation, that's part of our recommendation. That discussion has got to be out there for public and for our teacher corps to hear that now.
I'll make it part of the motion. That way they have the motion right.
Yeah. So the 80% would be, now Mike, that'll work for this raise, but in 5 years, if you're still at 80%, you're still kind of going to be looking at the same thing. Maybe not as drastic. It'd be hard it's going to get you this 5 years, but the next 5 years, maybe not.
You'll have to evaluate it in 2025.
So you want to state that clearly so that,
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion that we, for the fiscal year 1920 excess distribution, that it be for a 13th check of $1,902.67, and that starting in 2020, where we reduce the salary schedule reserves from 100% to 80%.
on the 10 and 15.
And that beginning, and that every 5 years, the committee look at contributing a portion of the excess distribution to the salary with the remainder of the 13th check.
And 2020 would be the 5th year since the last one.
Correct.
And just a minor correction, it's a 14th check. It's a 14th check.
You said October check. Yeah,
I'm good on that.
I'm good on that.
You have to put in there
You need
that
to stop talking, so I can.
the 5th year will be, for consideration is 2020. So they
Yeah,
know that
every 5
next-
years after 2020.
Okay.
Starting in 2020,
Starting
every 5 years thereafter.
As we have done the 5-year intervals.
Okay,
I'll
let's see.
second that motion.
Let's see if Lisa got that.
Wow,
We'll get it.
She has been charting in a while.
I hadn't done Chardonnay in a long time, so, but Ms. DeHaven moved that, and for fiscal year 19, and I'm not gonna say 1920 because it's fiscal year 19, that a recommendation of distribution of the 14th check in the amount of $1,902.67, and that starting in 2020, recommendation be made to reduce the salary schedule reserve from 100% to 80%, and that every 5 years, the committee look at contributing a portion of the excess distribution to salary with the remainder as a 14th check.
Yeah, beginning in 2020 and every 5 years thereafter. That'll make it clear. And beginning in 2020,
And then
And every 5 years thereafter.
Yeah.
And the 80% reserve applied to the reserve for the 15 and the 10 raises.
You might have to help me with that.
yeah, that'll just be your salary reserve, salary schedule reserve in Globo.
As we have done in 5-year intervals, starting in 2020, we would continue that because we want to know that 2010, 2015, and that's where you're basing that.
Correct.
So there's a history there.
Correct. I'm just jumping off of what y'all did in the past.
Do we have a second?
Y'all, what's this y'all?
You, Philip?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, technically Philip doesn't vote.
Yep, right, so,
Okay, seconds.
We're trying to keep order here.
okay, so, Ms. Reed. Okay, so yeah, let's keep our second to the voting members. Okay, so a show of hands. I think that's easy enough, thank you.
We did not lose voting privileges.
Well, only one member of each,
But I can on this
Committee gets
committee
to
forever
vote.
for voting privilege.
well,
That's why I-
and
I'm
that's
super
what,
for membership.
we probably need to visit that.
You're probably the
one
only one
to
who
give
showed up at the time, or maybe all agreed on the vote. Maybe all voted the same way. We just determined you have to take whoever's the representative.
Because it was a, when we changed the
I-
committee maker, that's all.
I was on here as president of LAE.
I think we went back and pulled who
Kept
was appointed to the
rotating
committee.
around.
Okay, so
We tried to
let's,
match that, so we knew who voted. So, that's, there's any other business? I think we're through with the agenda.
Move German.
Approve, all in favor? You can't vote.
Oh,
but I have it all noted.
This gets presented to the board.
That gets presented on the next meeting in,
The meeting in October.
September.
September.
I don't understand y'all board meetings anymore, so what day